All right, we have Mr. D out in the family plot garden, and we're going to look at our corn. So what do you want to start with the corn, Mr. D?
Well, we've got corn. We've got a corn crop. But this is probably a pretty classic example of why you don't see a lot of sweet corn in raised beds.
Yeah.
Sweet corn takes a lot of space to grow. I mean, even if every one of these stalks produced an ear, which it did.
Which it did.
We've got 5. I'm not sure yours over there really produced one.
It tried to produce one.
That's 5 ears of corn. You and I could make a meal off those 5 ears of corn. But this corn requires a tremendous amount of water. It has a massive root system, and it requires a tremendous amount of water to make a good corn crop. And we see here some classic symptoms of this corn probably didn't get enough water. Okay. When you have marginal leaf burn on just about any plant, that indicates that you either have too much water or too little water. Here we have marginal leaf burn showing up on this corn leaf. Classic. Yeah. On the edges of the leaf, it's burned. And I would say it's lack of water, not enough water. But other than that, I mean, I don't see any insect pressure on the corn. I'm gonna pull one of these. I mean, we're a little late to harvest sweet corn, and I'm gonna check it out and see what we have here.
Look at that.
Now, we should have harvested this a few weeks ago, and you would actually have had some sweet corn. I guess this is peaches and cream. Either that, it cross-pollinated with something it wasn't supposed to cross-pollinate with. I assume it's peaches and cream. But you see, you have a lot of empty spaces on the cob here. That indicates that 100% pollination did not occur.
Right.
And that could have been because of lack of water. The way corn is pollinated, the pollen, the male structure of the plant is up here on the tassel. And when the pollen is produced here and it falls off, and it falls on the silks. Okay. Every one of these silks, silk is a hollow tube, and the pollen travels through the silk to a kernel of corn. And for a kernel of corn to be produced, pollen must have traveled through that silk. Now, 100-degree temperatures can adversely affect pollination, and we had some of that in the past few weeks, which could have damaged the pollination here a little bit. But this ear corn cob is not very large in diameter. I think it got thirsty, and it didn't really like the hot weather that we had. Also, not only is water an issue in a raised bed like this, but see how close we have this okra?
Yeah, the spacing.
The okra seems to be thriving, and the okra has outcompeted this corn. Yes. It's outcompeted it, and it's like a foot apart, a foot away from the corn. So that's another issue. When it did rain or when it did get watered, the okra grabbed most of the water very quickly. But I don't see any insect damage. I don't see any evidence of corn earworm on this one.
So corn earworm is pretty much the major problem of?
Corn earworm is a major problem of sweet corn. It really is. I don't know, this sweet corn may be BT sweet corn. It may have Bacillus thuringiensis engineered into it, and that would reduce the damage from corn earworm.
Now, what if it wasn't BT engineered? Then what?
Then you might have very likely have an infestation of corn earworm. Okay. But I don't see any evidence of that, and it may simply be because this corn's kind of isolated, and there's not a lot of corn earworm moths that flying over would think that this is a cornfield.
Okay.
Probably.
That makes sense.
You know, but I don't see any evidence of damage.
Okay. So that's pretty much the only pest that we know of corn is the corn.
Well, there's also a corn borer that gets in the whorl of a small corn plant, and it will feed in the whorl as those baby leaves are emerging. Right. And even though it's a little bitty worm and it's feeding on the little bitty leaves, as the plant grows, the leaf emerges, and those little bitty holes that were in the whorl are now big holes in the leaves.
Okay.
And so when you see corn leaves that have big holes in the large leaves, that's probably an indication that back several weeks ago it was infested with the corn borer, European corn borer. And but I don't see any evidence of that either. So I don't, and those are the two worms that are the biggest problem with sweet corn production: corn borers and corn earworms.
Okay. Now, corns are they heavy feeders? You know, fertilizers, are they?
Corn requires quite a lot of nitrogen, and you know, in agricultural production, you put at least a pound of nitrogen for every bushel of yield that you want. If you want 300 bushel corn, you need to put 300 units of nitrogen out there.
Wow.
So yeah, it requires quite a lot of nitrogen, and that might be a limiting factor here too. This corn is not dark green, it's kind of light green, so it probably didn't get quite as much nitrogen as it wanted. However, the okra over here has a good dark color, and it apparently is getting adequate nitrogen. But you got to understand, when you have a raised bed like this, those okra roots are out here by this cucumber. The corn roots are out here. The corn roots are over here on the other side of the okra, and it's in the squash area. So the roots are just mingled all together. And you know, just because you planted them in a plant this big, just because you planted it in a little row, doesn't mean the roots are going to stay right there. They're taking off. They're looking for water. And okra is more successful in drier conditions. Okra doesn't require as much water as corn. It's more related, you know, it kind of acts like cotton. Cotton can get along fine under dry conditions most of the time, and hot conditions. They love, okra and cotton love hot weather. Corn, not so much.
Not so much.
So my recommendation is the raised bed next year, let's don't plant sweet corn. If you want to plant sweet corn, let's plant about 6 rows right over there next to the building, all up and down through there, and then we'll have sweet corn.
All right, well, we appreciate that, Mr. D.